You've probably seen the photos. Moraine Lake with those mountain peaks glowing pink and gold as the sun rises and shines on them. But is it really worth waking up at 4 a.m. or earlier, 3:30 a.m. to catch a shuttle to get up there for sunrise? Today we're talking about what sunrise at Moraine Lake is actually like and whether it's something you should plan on for your trip to Banff. Welcome to the Banff Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Celine, a local Canmore resident living the mountain life all year long. When I'm not hiking to a new viewpoint, hitting the local mountain bike trails, or skating on frozen lakes in the winter, I'm helping travelers like you plan unforgettable trips to Banff National Park. As co-founder of Banff Travel Planning and Travel Banff Canada, and a fellow traveler who spent years exploring the world with my husband and our 2 kids, I know what it takes to plan a trip that's smooth, stress-free, and full of those wow moments. Today's episode is all about sunrise at Moraine Lake, what to expect, why people love it, and whether you should put it on your must-do list. Trust me, I have some thoughts on this one. So let's start with the hype. If you've Googled Banff, you've definitely seen that iconic photo, the Valley of the 10 Peaks glowing in the early light, mirrored perfectly on Moraine Lake's glassy surface. There's a reason photographers and early risers go out of their way for this moment. It's stunning. When the conditions are right, it really does feel like a scene from a postcard. But I'll be honest, getting there isn't effortless. You'll be waking up really early, especially if you're visiting in June, July, or August. You're going to be bundling up, it's going to be dark, and you're really crossing those fingers hoping for clear skies. Some mornings it's going to be cloudy. Some mornings it might be smoky if there's forest fires in the area, or you may just not get that perfect glow. I actually took my kids out to Moraine Lake for sunrise 2 or 3 years ago, my husband and I, and we had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to go catch the shuttle. So not always fun with an 8 and 10-year-old. Of course, at that age, they're not overly interested in the sunrise. Thankfully, I had planned ahead a little bit. I had some blankets and I had some snacks. And we were there waiting for the sun to rise and get that beautiful glow on the peaks. And I had my camera and my tripod all set up, and I look back and there's my kids, and they're not even looking where the sun is coming up. They're laying on the blanket, playing games. So are your kids going to care? Probably not. Is it something that's a must for you? If it is, I always say go for it. Let's get into the details of it. What time is sunrise at Moraine Lake? That really depends on when you're here. If you're here in June, the sunrise is around 5:30 all month long. As we get into July, you're going to find that the sunrise starts to get a little bit later towards the end of the month. It's going to be around 6 a.m. And then as you get into August, starts at 6 a.m. and then closer to 7 as you get towards the end of August. So if you want to be there with 45 minutes to go find your spot on the rock pile and watch the sunrise, the sunrise happens at 6 a.m., that means you're going to want to be there by 5:15, which means you need to be on the shuttle before 5 a.m. Now, when we did ours, by the time we figured out the driving distance and all of that, I think we got up sometime around 4 a.m. So not ideal. Made us tired for the rest of the day. But you know what? It is absolutely possible, and just plan the rest of your day accordingly. If you caught my episode on these shuttles and looking at which shuttles make the most sense to get out there, keeping in mind that the Alpine Start shuttle that Parks Canada runs isn't always going to be the best option, especially when you want to catch that alpenglow that starts about 30 minutes before the official sunrise. What I really love is a lot of the private operators, the shuttle operators, they plan that so you're there that 45 minutes in advance. That gives you time to walk up the rock pile, 10, 15 minutes for that, and then find yourself a spot, set up a tripod, set up your camera, and then have a little bit of time to relax and take in that sunrise. So as we're talking about that, let's talk about logistics, because as you probably know, you can't drive your own car to Moraine Lake anymore. They've closed it down, and now you need to take a shuttle, which can either be the Parks Canada shuttle, or again, there's a lot of private operators that will get you up there for sunrise. There are some that operate out of Canmore, out of Banff, and out of Lake Louise. So there's plenty of good options. And I do have that guide to getting to Moraine Lake that you can download for free, and I'll link to in the show notes. The other thing I want you to think about as you're planning your Moraine Lake sunrise is photography really important to you? Perhaps you want to go with a shuttle that has a photography add-on to find that best spot to grab that picture that you've been wanting since you saw it online. It is really important to plan that shuttle ahead of time to make sure you can catch that sunrise. Sunrise is the busiest time at Moraine Lake. Now, sunrise is obviously quite beautiful, but if it's the blue color of the lake that you really want to see, then you're either going to need to give yourself more time at Moraine Lake after sunrise, or you may want to just skip sunrise and plan to go later in the morning. You really do need the sun reflecting off that rock flower in the water to get that brilliant blue color. So that's always something to consider as well. The other thing to consider is in the morning when it's really nice and calm is when you'll get that stunning mountain reflection. So there's a lot of things to think about. Should you visit Moraine Lake at sunrise? Let's break it down. If you're a photographer and you want that iconic shot, yes, absolutely. If you want to hike up to Larch Valley after, why not go enjoy the sunrise and then do an early hike up to Larch Valley or Sentinel Pass? If you're staying nearby in Lake Louise, you may not need to get up so early because you're already there. Whereas if you're staying in Canmore, you have an extra hour drive. Although keep in mind, you can take some of those shuttles that leave from Canmore and just nap on the way there, have somebody else drive you there. If mornings are just your time and you don't mind waking up at 4 a.m., why not go and experience it? Now, obviously, there's a lot of other really wonderful spots around Banff to catch a sunrise as well. You know, Bow Lake up on the Icefields Parkway, Vermilion Lakes in the town of Banff. So keep that in mind as well. Now, when might it not be worth it? If you're traveling with little kids who don't do mornings, it's not always ideal. They're not going to enjoy sitting there for an hour waiting for the sunrise to come up. You can maybe just leave it or split up with your partner. Somebody stay back with the kids. If you don't want to spend the rest of the day absolutely exhausted because you want to do a really big hike, it may not be worth it for you to get up this early in the morning. Or if you're only in Banff for a very short time, maybe you want to prioritize doing something else over Moraine Lake. Again, if this is something that you have dreamed of seeing, then absolutely, there's no reason not to do it. But do remember that Moraine Lake is beautiful no matter when you go. Sunrise is just one way to experience it. You can also go later in the morning and canoe on the lake. You can walk the lakeshore trail. You can enjoy it at closer to sunset when there's way less people. All right, let's get into the listener question of the week. If you could only do one hike in Banff National Park, which one would it be? Now, I actually asked this question in my Facebook group because I wanted to get people's impressions and which hikes they really loved while they were here. I had answered that the Lake Louise circuit, getting up to Lake Agnes, the Beehives, and over to Plain of Six Glaciers was certainly one of the best hikes that I would not miss. And no surprise, Lake Louise really dominated the entire conversation. So many other people on their own accord threw in Lake Agnes Tea House, Little Beehive, Big Beehive, Plain of Six Glaciers, and then up to Devil's Thumb. So several people loved combining all of the stops or just doing one of the tea houses. Some of the other ones that were included were Sentinel Pass, so up Larch Valley up to Sentinel Pass for stunning views of the Valley of the Ten Peaks. Tunnel Mountain, though it's short, it's a great scenic option right from the town of Banff. Obviously, Johnson Canyon to the Ink Pods is a very popular one, especially if you want to see those waterfalls. If you head into Kananaskis, Tent Ridge is always a really popular one. Just know that that does involve a small bit of scrambling, so if that's not within your wheelhouse, you may want to give that one a miss. And Fairview Mountain as well was chosen again at Lake Louise. There's really so many great hiking options when you come here, and everybody's going to love different hikes for different reasons, whether you're going looking for a view. Some people don't like if it's too long in the trees, depends what the payoff is, but there's really so many different options and different hiking trails between Kananaskis, Banff, Jasper, Yoho National Park, and Kootenay that you're not going to have any trouble finding a new hike, even if you've been here before. Let's give a few final tips before we end this. So we were talking about Moraine Lake at sunrise. It's still really important, even in July and August, to bring some warm clothes. Keep in mind that those mornings still can be chilly, and you're not going to be moving around. You're going to be sitting on rocks likely, so it's probably going to be a little bit chilly. You want to bring a headlamp or a flashlight or use your phone if you're climbing up the rock pile in the dark. If you're a photographer, a tripod is really important. So make sure you have that ready and packed. And then, of course, just booking your shuttle to make sure you're not going to miss out on that if that's a must do for you. You can always check the forecast the night before to see what kind of morning to expect, but do keep in mind that the weather changes quite quickly in the mountains. So even the forecast is a little bit hard to depend on. Sometimes you just have to go and hope that you're lucky to get the exact experience that you're hoping for, or just enjoy the experience that you're given. Again, I'll link in the show notes my blog post on visiting Moraine Lake at sunrise and the downloadable guide to getting there. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Banff Travel Podcast. If you found it helpful, I'd love if you hit subscribe and left a review. It really helps other travelers find the show. If you have a question you'd like me to answer on a future episode, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast to send it in. You can find more planning tips, tools, and free resources on both of my sites, travelbanffcanada.com and banfftravelplanning.com. Until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you out on the trails.